Hello everybody, thank you for all coming out on such a chilly Braidwood. I'm not going to, my name is Cecile, and I'm the observer now, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm not going to say much. Can you hear me? I'm not going to say much, I'm going to hand it over to Suzanne. But I just, in a current political climate that we have, I just wanted to, for my acknowledgement, I just wanted to share something with you that someone sent me on an email today. I acknowledge and appreciate that I live and work on lands brutally stolen from Aboriginal people, and I extend my respect to elders past and present, and regret our failure to recognise past genocides and our ongoing brutality. And I'm lucky to live in Australia. Suzanne, thank you for putting up a marvellous show. I wanted to thank Lizzie, who's here tonight too, Lizzie and Reg came in and did a great job helping with the hang and the curating through the week. We had a really good day. I've actually known Suzanne for quite a long time. Suzanne and I have both been part of the Braidwood arts landscape for many years really, and have had some very dear friends who have come and gone over the years. And I've been following her work, and this year in particular I was really taken with the work that Suzanne showed in Sydney earlier in the year, and I got in touch with Suzanne after I saw it. And I think some of those pieces, a few of those pieces are in the show tonight. Did I want to say anything else? No, that's all I want to say, Suzanne. I'm going to hand it over to you because Suzanne's going to introduce Biff.
Well, I want to thank Cecile, who is the new director of this wonderful gallery. When I first came to Braidwood, it was the Altenburg gallery run by Christy and Christoph and Chris. I'm sorry, I know I'm trying to look cool, but I'm as nervous as anything. And if you remember that great tradition that they established, and I think Cecile is the embodiment of that tradition, and I think I love being part of the new Renaissance period of the Altenburg. It's really wonderful, and she's been just delightful and very generous to work with, and I thank her very much. So it's falls me to introduce our wonderful speaker, my beloved and dear friend Biff from Canberra. I know that many of you either know her or know of her.
Not really.
That's what you say now.
Sorry.
And I asked Biff to launch my show because I've known her as a very dear friend and comrade for many decades, and also because I wanted, in our great tradition of promoting each other and our community, to be able to say a little bit about her and her work. Biff is known in many regards as a great innovator, education innovator. She was one of the founders of the School Without Walls in Canberra, that many of you will know. An activist and main leader of the anti-war movement, and a great feminist, and a very, very, very supportive and wonderful friend. And her last book, which I happen to have a few copies of, if anyone wants to buy them, is this one, which was launched last year, In My Mother's Hands.
2014.
Oh, is it that long ago?
Yeah.
Well, I just remember the launch at the National Library was fantastic. And it's a memoir that's very much about this region and growing up and her family. And I know she won't want me to say this, but I think for those of you who are historians or of the same age as me or students of Australia will know that Biff's father was the great Professor Russell Ward, who wrote The Australian Legend. And this book partly is about the family that formed around that extremely important intellectual. Her new book, which is due out next year, is called The Third Chopstick, and it deals with Vietnam and it's very much again in a kind of a memoir form, but it's a complex piece, and it looks at Biff as an activist, reflecting on her extreme activism in the early days, her involvement then later with veterans, and her ongoing involvement with reconciliation in Vietnam. And that's due out next year, third chopstick, and we might be able to have a launch here sometime.
That'd be convenient.
So Biff's involvements have been at the cutting edge of visionary a new society, and it's inspired me always. And so without further ado, I'd like to hand over to her to launch the show. Thank you, Biff.
That introduction's made me quite hot. Very cold. Thank you. It was very, very kind and generous and slightly over the top. I'm just wondering if people want to squash in further. There's heaps of room, in fact, on the floor, particularly this side. People can move
Does
down.
Natalie need a chair? Do you need a chair? I think Natalie needs a chair.
Fantastic. Natalie, I think you need a throne really.
Biff.
Waiting for settlement.
Yes, right. Here we are.
So I was extremely honoured to be asked by Suzanne to launch this exhibition. And as it got closer, I got quite excited about trying to grapple with the enormity that is Suzanne. Because we've been close friends, we've been friends since the early 70s and extremely close friends since...
Oh, assistant, here to help.
Oh, I'm sorry, Biff. I don't know why that happened. I'll turn it off.
Thank you. We've been extremely close friends since 1978. I could tell a little story about that, but it involved an intense period of numerology and palm reading.
Oh, we don't do that anymore.
I was also a bit challenged by trying to launch this exhibition because Suzanne's always been for me a big mind, an exciting friend, someone who I think every time I ever am with her, and we used to stay at each other's houses and talk for days on end. She thinks big, she thinks cosmically, literally the cosmos and the other worlds out there, planetary spheres, the transit of patriarchy. If you've never seen that poster, it's a ripper. And she also can deal with and focus on with small things, with very intense attention to detail. Like we could have a forensic examination of a word or a facial gesture, you know, that went on and on and on, looking for meaning. And I think all of these things are manifested in this exhibition, the largeness and the smallness. So she brings us this collection, which she's called Time and Place. And I thought I'd just say a little bit about those words, because as I understand it, the word time is actually the most common of all the common nouns in English. So it's something we all play with all the time and live by and detest and love and so on. It's a big concept. It also invokes, of course, time behind, the past, and time ahead, the future, and yet time is always situated in the now. It's very multifaceted and a big concept. It also speaks of billions of years, that planetary sphere again. Place is many things. For most of us, it's an anchor. It's often the familiar. It's home. It's a particular place. But also most of us will have, and Suzanne has, and it's manifested here, right here, and many other parts of this exhibition, a sense of the beloved places, the soul nurturing places. And this is actually her creek on her property where she lives and walking there. Place is also often where we collect things. So this is an exhibition of things, and they got created in a certain place, so they infuse each other. Place and object and the art process all talk together. And once the objects, the artistic objects, are created in a place, they help to define that place. And I think ultimately, and this is probably true for all of us, but I'm talking about Suzanne, we can see place as the seat of personhood. It's where that person creates the meaning of their lives. And in an artist's case, creates objects that spell out that meaning, which is constantly in flow and changing. For Suzanne, this exhibition is an embarkation on a visual memoir, on bringing together many of the things that she's been working with and playing with for decades, and particularly the last 25 years at Mongalo. So they grow out of her imaginarium in the time and place that she's inhabited in those 25 years. I remember when we were young, I was in my 30s, she was probably in her 20s. I remember her observing, there was something she used to talk about quite a bit, that no matter how disparate one person's interests were, how weirdly they seem, you've made a list of them, if they existed within one person, then they were actually connected. It all made sense somewhere, even if you couldn't see it and you couldn't join the dots. And that's part of what I feel here and see here, all of the things that she's been thinking about and in words and in visual ways for many, many years, and they've all come together here. So what we've got is a fusion of her intellectual ideas with the physical objects, pictorial and sculptural. We've also got a crossover of words, which are incredibly important to Suzanne, the ways we make meaning through words, and deconstructed metal objects, as in the translation poem, the one in that corner, is all in fact about words. You may find that puzzling, but have a good look at it. There's also the cipher machine. Where is that? That one. And the library is out there too. It's called the library, and it's tiny metal objects. Have a look at that. So doing something with words and, in fact, metal. And the other thing that Suzanne is really working on here is the place of metal machinery as it existed particularly in the 20th century and by which we made meaning. And she got hold of slide projectors and old typewriters and record players and those kinds of machines and took them apart and found within some of them the most extraordinarily beautiful objects. Have a look, there's some, I'm not sure if there's one in this room, of the prisms out of a slide projector. Fabulous, incredible things. So she's playing with all of that, but underneath that is, as always with Suzanne, some strong and interesting intellectual ideas. The exhibition also brings together a tension between inner and outer. So we've got inside spaces, and there's a set of 3 boxes. There's 2 in this room and 1 in that room, which I've lost my place a bit here, but it's a tree, a metal tree there, and home and the studio, and they're in sort of boxes you look down into. The studio is pretty exciting, something spiralling wildly there. So there's inside spaces and outside spaces. There's the beach in the hall particularly, and the one over there, and this one of the Mongalo Creek, Warrumbaka. And a certain tension between those, the playing with inside and outside places and spaces. And then there's the barge. There's the barge, which is kind of outside but has its own inside. And this is, the barge is a processional process of women renewing and saving the earth, here with the magic answer, and chatting and chatting and chatting and planning. And this is holding particular resonance for me because this morning I managed to go to my first Extinction Rebellion action.
Yay!
And watch a die-in. I took my granddaughter to start learning about it. And I just love this because it seems to me it overrides all the other issues that we might care about at the moment. That's the one. And I love her. So we have here in this exhibition the whole panoply of Suzanne's art, from her ceramic pot stays through the banners, these large canvases, recall some banners she made, the printmaking, the ceramic sculptures, to what I call the proscenium archways of the boxes. Invitation into all these boxes where these ideas of deconstructed slide projectors and typewriters, a sort of what Suzanne calls a general metallica, is, you know, we're playing with how that made meaning for us in the past and what makes meaning for us now. And as well as the metal, I love that there's rock salt in some work out there. There's eucalyptus oil in some of these, particularly this one, which, you know, is very Australian really. There's bracken leaves and the prisms. There's a whole world of wood and metal and nature that we navigate every day. And Suzanne's trying to take that apart and put it back together. I just mentioned Extinction Rebellion. So we have here the local bush, the bush native around this place of Braidwood and the coast. The sea pools, number 26 out there is my personal favourite. There's incredible dynamism in it, and it came from a week at the coast. Several works in 1 week. So we have Suzanne's places, home, work, inspiration, that has sustained her for 25 years. It's all here, it's beautiful and intellectual and whimsical. As with all artists, the work actually reveals the soul of that artist and is in that sense an act of bravery, always. In Suzanne's case, we have that intellectual depth and breadth of soul plus, as I just said, and most importantly, the whimsy. Suzanne is fun on top of everything else. This exhibition makes all of us beneficiaries. Suzanne for her life of creativity, and us, friends and acquaintances, who can engage with and enjoy the journey of her ideas and her emotions and connections through time and place. So I invite all of you to let the pieces speak to you, and best of all, notice how they speak to each other. You can have a conversation. Listen to them and their different songs. And I declare this exhibition well and truly open.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Suzanne, I did actually also want to make an announcement
Yeah, we do. For Maria.
for Maria. There's a movie showing at the National Theatre tonight at 7:30 called Suicide, The Ripple Effect, part of our mental health week. And the director, Elani Salakis, is actually going to be present at the showing, I believe. Yes? So that's on at 7:30 tonight next door. If people are still around, I'm sure it'll be worthwhile.
And we're going to the Pink Pub. after we've all been here for a while, and anyone who's interested in this, because there's no restaurants open in Braidwood, but the Pink Pub, that's the pub on the left, the Braidwood Hotel, that's where we'll be after we leave here. So.
Commercial.
Is that what it's called?
Commercial.
John Mitchell's old pub.
Yeah.
And thank you so much to everyone for coming. overwhelming. It's
Thank
been
you.
quite overwhelming. Thank you, Biff. It's been a joy to be able to exhibit in my